For the second general election in a row, all 93 parliamentary seats will be contested. Hello, you're watching The Big Story. I'm Olivia Quay.
And I'm Dylan Ng. Now subscribe to the Straits Times channel so you never miss a single episode.
Nomination day saw 192 candidates file their papers to contest every seat in 17 GRCs and 14 SMCs. With no walkovers, it means all 2.65 million voters will soon receive polling cards to vote on July the 10th.
The People's Action Party's best-kept secret was revealed today. Deputy Prime Minister Heng Swee Keat will be leading a five-man team into the battle for East Coast GRC.
Now, following the retirements of ex-Minister Lim Swee Say and Mr. Lee Yi-hsien, the role of anchor minister for East Coast had been widely watched.
And DPM Heng's arrival at St. Anthony's Canossian Primary School this morning had surprised political watchers. He'd been the anchor minister for neighbouring Tampines GRC and had been expected to remain there.
The other members of the PAP team are Senior Minister of State for Defence and Foreign Affairs Maliki Osman, three-term backbencher Jessica Tan and one-term Feng Shan MP Cheryl Chan. New face and ex-IMDA CEO Tan Kiat Hao is also part of the team.
They'll be up against Workers' Party's Mr. Kenneth Foo, Mr. Abdul Sharif Abu Qasim, Mr. Terence Tan, Mr. Dylan Ng and Ms. Nicole Seah.
From east to west, another big battle is shaping up in West Coast GRC, with PAP's Desmond Lee also swapping GRCs.
The Minister for Social and Family Development is leaving Jurong to join West Coast, led by Communications and Information Minister S. Iswaran. West Coast is one of two teams with two full ministers. The other is Tanjung Pagar GRC, helmed by Trade and Industry Minister Chan Chun Sing and Minister in the Prime Minister's Office Indrani Raja. The other members in the PAP lineup are Ms. Foo Mi Ha, Mr. Ang Wei Neng and Ms. Rachel Ong.
They'll face off against Dr. Tan Cheng Bok and the Progress Singapore Party. Now, Dr. Tan is making a reappearance in the constituency he helmed for 26 years as a PAP MP.
Meanwhile, Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong said PAP is fighting for every single vote in this election. Mr. Lee and his Ang Mo Kio GRC team will once again face the Reform Party, led by its chairman Andy Ju and Secretary General Kenneth Jeyaratnam. At the last election, Mr. Lee won 78.6% of the votes, but he's not taking anything for granted this year.
We fight for every vote, and when you open the ballot boxes, you will know how the voters have decided. And this time we're taking it very seriously. We're fighting for every vote. Every constituency is contested. So this is not a by-election. It's a general election for the most important issues concerning the country at a moment of crisis. And I think everybody needs to understand that. Everybody must have that in mind when they assess their votes.
PM Lee's brother and Progress Singapore Party member Mr. Lee Hsien Yang will not be contesting this election after all. Although he was spotted at a coffee shop near the Bendemeer Primary School Nomination Centre, his name didn't appear in nomination papers by the noon deadline.
In a Facebook post, Mr. Lee said he's chosen not to stand for political office because Singapore doesn't need another Lee.
The Workers' Party will be fighting hard to defend its seats come polling day on July 10th. In Aljunied GRC, the Workers' Party's A team comprises three incumbents, Secretary General Pritam Singh, Chairman Sylvia Lim and Faisal Manap, as well as former non-constituency MPs Gerald Giam and Leon Pereira, who will be joining the team in Aljunied for the first time.
WP took over Aljunied in 2011, the first time a GRC was won by an opposition party. Meanwhile, the PAP slate consists of Victor Lai, Chua Eng Leong, Shamsul Kama and first-time candidates Alex Yeo and Chan Hui Yu.
Over in Hougang SMC, the longest-held opposition ward in Singapore, Workers' Party's Dennis Tan will go head-to-head with PAP's Lee Hong Chuang.
Meanwhile, the Singapore Democratic Party sprang a few surprises this morning. Party chairman Paul Tambaya will be contesting Bukit Panjang SMC and not Holland-Bukit Timah GRC as observers had expected. He'll face off against PAP's Mr. Liang Enghua.
Meanwhile, Mr. Tan Jisei has joined the SDP team challenging the PAP in Holland-Bukit Timah GRC. Mr. Tan returned to the SDP just yesterday after dissolving his party, Singaporeans First.
And SDP Chief Dr. Chee Soon Juan will be on the ballot paper for Bukit Batok SMC once more. He'll be up against PAP's Murali Pillay, who won the constituency in a 2016 by-election.
Now, despite perhaps a muted atmosphere at the nomination centres this morning, there's no lack of talking points thanks to some last-minute changes.
Let's discuss this with news editor Zakir Hussain. Zakir, I know it's been a long day for you, so thank you so much for joining us. DPM Heng Swee Keat leaving Tampines to contest East Coast GRC. Now, of course, East Coast is widely seen as one of the toughest fights in this GE. Do you think the inclusion of DPM Heng will lead to less of a neck-and-neck fight with the WP this time?
Yes, I think it will, and I think our sense from speaking to some residents and observers on the ground is it's suddenly made voters think twice, and I think it's shored up the East Coast PAP slate. It had, the team there had a strong 64% of the vote in the 2015 election, but this time round, I think, it's an even stronger team, and I think DPM Heng explained why he felt, he had to be there and help shore the team up. The MPs in the team have been working the ground, but there's been some change, and two senior members, former Mr. Lim Swee Say and Mr. Lee Shen, are leaving, stepping down, and I think DPM's addition to the team does bring a bit more, and I think give voters more room to consider their vote.
Now, Zakir, what do you make of the ministers moving to different constituencies? For instance, Desmond Lee moving from Jurong to West Coast to go up against Dr. Tan Cheng Bock and the PSP.
I think, again, it's a sign that the PAP is taking some of these contests quite seriously. Again, West Coast, actually, it's always had two ministers for some time. There was former Trade and Industry Minister Lim Heng Kiang helming the team at the last election. Now he stepped down. And perhaps the inclusion of up-and-coming Minister Desmond Lee is again another signal of the seriousness with which the party sees this contest. Minister Lee as well has been in charge of many of the initiatives to do with social assistance, especially during the pandemic, and he's quite a recognizable face to many of the voters. His former constituency as well, Jurong, was quite near, and I think he's been involved at several activities in the constituency now.
Okay, well, we've talked about East Coast, West Coast as well. What are some of the other notable outcomes for you from today?
I think what's interesting is some of the single-member constituencies are seeing some very interesting fights this time around. It came as a surprise, but Singapore's first woman Brigadier General Gan Xiao Huang turned up at the nomination centre, and she's standing as a single candidate for Marymount single seat. It's a new seat carved out. It was former Minister Josephine Teo's ward, and she's been walking around the area as well. But no one really expected her to come up, and she's up against, again, former Army Colonel Ang Yong Guan, who has been in opposition politics for over 10 years now. Again, in another single seat, Yeo Chu Kang, you have a first-timer standing for the first time, Mr. Yip Hon Wing. He's been active in the Silver Generation Office, basically going around the country explaining to seniors, some of the help schemes and medical schemes available to them. Mr. Yip is again standing as an independent, he's again standing independently as a single candidate in Yeo Chu Kang, and he'll be up against Kayla Low of the PSP, who again was a former public servant, but who's also not unfamiliar to community work.
Well, thank you for taking the time today, Zakir. We'll be checking in with you, of course, in the coming days as campaigning is officially underway. We've been speaking with the Straits Times' news editor, Zakir Hussain.
And be sure to catch our special election show, GE 2020, today at 10 p.m. Haryanto Diman and Rachel Kelly will cover all the developments as campaigning gets fully underway.
At the same time, bookmark our GE 2020 microsite to follow our live blog and get all the latest election news.
We've been hearing from a number of candidates at press conferences this evening. The PAP team in Marine Parade GRC said that Emeritus Senior Minister Goh Chok Tong, who used to lead the constituency, is irreplaceable.
But this election is not about finding a replacement. Instead, it's about the team members bringing their different experiences and talents to the table.
Our focus really is about our residents, and that ultimately is what it's all about. It's about the individuals, but it is also about our community and how do you pool and bring people together. And that's really important. How do you focus on individuals? How do you focus on the community? How do you build communities? When we talk about nation building, it's not just some airy-fairy notion. There are things that we can do. And as members of parliament on the ground, that's our responsibility as well.
Now, WP expects a difficult fight against PAP in the constituencies that it is contesting, but it has full confidence in the performance of its new candidates. It is contesting 6 constituencies, including East Coast, Aljunied, Marine Parade and Hougang.
Now, East Coast GRC is expected to be a key battleground for WP. As we reported earlier, this is after Deputy Prime Minister Heng Swee Keat was fielded there as the anchor minister for PAP in a surprise move. WP Chief Pritam Singh called it an important signal by the PAP.
They take our challenge in East Coast very seriously. I would say we take their challenge equally seriously, and that's why we've put a strong slate of candidates in East Coast. I think they will do well for the Workers' Party, and I think they will prove to voters that there are no pushovers and that they will be prepared to fight for the interests of Singapore and Singaporeans, not just in Parliament but in the constituency and in their town councils as well.
Here's an update on the COVID-19 situation here. 246 new cases were confirmed today, taking Singapore's total to over 43,907. They include 6 community cases, 3 are Singaporeans or permanent residents, and 3 are work pass holders.
The majority of the other cases are migrant workers living in dormitories. More details will be released later.
Now, households can expect lower electricity bills for the next 3 months. SP Group said today that electricity tariffs are set to fall by an average of 15% from July to September. Families living in 4-room HDB flats could see their average monthly bill decrease by $12, excluding GST. Lawyer Jeffrey Ong was slapped with 15 more charges today, including 14 counts of cheating. He now faces 53 charges in total. The 42-year-old disappeared after $33 million held in escrow by his firm was found to be missing. He was later arrested in Malaysia and brought back to Singapore. Ong was not offered bail and he will be back in court on August 11th. Here's a quick look at the global headlines. China passed a Hong Kong national security law that will ban subversion and secession. The law sparked demonstrations in Hong Kong since it was announced by Beijing in May, and it's drawn criticism and condemnation from other countries. The pro-democracy camp in Hong Kong says it represents an end of the one country, two systems principle that has governed the city since its return to China in 1997, while China says the law is needed to tackle unrest and instability in the city and rejects criticism as interference in its affairs. Also in China, researchers in China claim to have discovered a new type of swine flu capable of triggering a pandemic. Named G4, it is genetically descended from the H1N1 strain that caused a pandemic in 2009. While the study points to G4 being passed from animals to humans, there is no evidence yet that it can be passed from human to human, the scientists' main worry. The researchers have called for urgent measures to monitor people working with pigs.
And India banned 59 Chinese mobile apps, including TikTok and WeChat, over national security and privacy concerns. This move comes just weeks after a deadly Himalayan border clash between the two countries. India's Ministry of Information Technology said the decision is a targeted move to ensure safety and sovereignty of Indian cyberspace. Chinese mobiles have an almost 65% share in the Indian smartphone market, and there are estimated to be about 120 million TikTok users in India. It's not clear when the ban will come into force.
Be sure to catch a special edition election show, GE 2020 today at 10 p.m. Haranto Demand and Rachel Kelly will cover all the developments as campaigning gets fully underway.
At the same time, bookmark our GE 2020 microsite to follow our live blog and get all the latest election news.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel by hitting the red button below. And once again, I'm Dylan Ang with Olivia Quay. Join us tomorrow for more stories on The Big Story.